Jennifer Gledhill and David Gledhill seemed like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors their marriage was a ticking time bomb. When Jennifer's secret affair with Eric Palmer spiraled into obsession and deceit, no one could have predicted the deadly outcome that would shatter their seemingly flawless lives. Jennifer Gledhill appeared to have it all: a successful career as a real estate agent, a beautiful home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and a loving husband, David, who was known for his calm and dependable nature. Together, they embodied the image of stability and success. Friends often described them as the couple who had it figured out, the kind who hosted dinner parties, volunteered at community events, and always seemed to have everything under control. Jennifer's social media was filled with smiling photos from beach vacations, snapshots of their perfectly decorated home, and heartfelt captions about love, balance, and gratitude. To anyone looking from the outside, her life was the definition of perfection. But behind that carefully maintained image, something darker had started to grow. It began quietly, a sense of dissatisfaction that Jennifer couldn't explain. The routine of her life, once comforting, had started to feel suffocating. Every morning felt the same: the coffee, the commute, the open houses, the forced small talk. Somewhere along the way, the spark that once fueled her ambition had dimmed. She loved her husband, or at least she thought she did. But lately, she felt invisible. David had become distant, consumed by his own work and rarely asking how she was doing. Then came Eric Palmer, confident, attentive, and effortlessly charming. He was one of her new clients, a businessman looking to invest in property outside the city. From the first meeting, Jennifer felt something shift. Eric paid attention in a way that David no longer did. He listened, complimented her insight, and seemed to understand the version of her that she thought had disappeared. Their professional conversations slowly turned personal, first harmless, then intimate. What began as lingering messages and late-night calls turned into secret meetings in quiet cafes and weekend trips disguised as work. For a while, Jennifer told herself it was just an escape, a temporary distraction from a life that had become too predictable. But the deeper she fell into the affair, the more her world began to fracture. She started lying to David, telling half-truths about open houses that didn't exist, about clients who never showed up. Her phone became a constant source of anxiety: messages to delete, calls to hide, stories to remember. Every glance, every smile she gave Eric came with the heavy weight of guilt pressing against her chest. Soon, what once felt thrilling began to feel dangerous. Eric's charm slowly revealed a possessive edge. He began asking where she was, who she was with, and why she wasn't answering his messages fast enough. Jennifer brushed it off at first, convincing herself it was passion, not control. But the more time she spent with him, the more uneasy she became. He knew details she had never shared: where she liked to jog, the password to her phone, the code to her office door. By the time summer arrived, Jennifer was living two separate lives that were beginning to collide. One was public and polished, full of smiles and small talk. The other was secret, fueled by guilt and fear. She couldn't walk away from Eric, but she couldn't keep lying to David either. She felt trapped, torn between the life she had built and the dangerous one she had stumbled into. Every day, she told herself she would end it, that she'd send one final message and make it all disappear. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple, because someone else had already crossed a line. Someone had been watching her. And Jennifer was starting to realize that the perfect life she had so carefully built was beginning to crumble, piece by piece, secret by secret. The night Jennifer disappeared, heavy rain had been falling for hours, washing away footprints and clues before anyone even knew something was wrong. Her silver SUV was discovered by a passing truck driver who noticed its hazard lights flashing faintly in the distance. The vehicle sat at an odd angle on the side of a desolate country road, surrounded by tall, swaying grass. The driver's side door was slightly ajar, as though someone had stepped out and never returned. Inside, police found her purse on the passenger seat, untouched, with her credit cards, identification, and keys neatly inside. The only thing missing was her phone. Detectives examined the area and noted faint tire marks near the ditch, suggesting that another vehicle had stopped close by. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no blood, just silence and rain washing over everything. It looked as though Jennifer had simply vanished into thin air. When David Gledhill was informed that his wife's car had been found, his reaction was strange. Not hysterical, not calm, but hollow. He told police that Jennifer had been distant lately, sometimes pacing at night and checking the locks more than once. She had even started sleeping in the guest room some nights, saying she needed space to think. David assumed it was stress from work. He hadn't known there was another man. Detectives began their search by tracing Jennifer's final known movements. Security footage showed her leaving the real estate office at 6:43 p.m., umbrella in hand, heading toward her car. From there, she drove out of the city toward a rural area she rarely visited. No one could explain why. Her phone pinged off several cell towers along that route before going silent at 7:28 p.m. When her phone records came back, investigators noticed something odd. A series of late-night calls over several weeks to a number registered under a false name. The calls were frequent, lasting anywhere from a few minutes to more than an hour, but they had stopped 2 days before she went missing. Tracing the number led police to Eric Palmer. Eric, when questioned, appeared calm and cooperative. He admitted to knowing Jennifer, but claimed their relationship had ended weeks earlier. According to him, they had agreed to go their separate ways, and he had no idea where she was. He described her as emotional and unstable toward the end, saying she had accused him of following her and sending strange messages. When detectives pressed him about the phone calls, he brushed them off, claiming they were just attempts to talk things through. Despite his relaxed demeanor, something about his story didn't add up. He couldn't explain why his car had been spotted by a traffic camera near the same rural road where Jennifer A.'s vehicle was later found. He said he was passing through, but couldn't provide details of where he was headed or why. When investigators subpoenaed data from Jennifer's cloud storage, they found multiple deleted folders that had been recently accessed, not by Jennifer, but by someone else using a shared household device. One of those logins came from the Gledhill home computer. The realization sent a chill through the entire investigative team. Whoever had been tormenting Jennifer wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. It was someone inside her world, someone close enough to know her every move. The digital evidence was no longer pointing squarely at Eric Palmer. Instead, it hinted at something much more personal and deeply rooted. As detectives pieced together the fragments of her final days, they began to see Jennifer's double life for what it truly was. It wasn't just about an affair, it was about control, and the terrifying power of someone willing to destroy everything to keep a secret buried. 3 weeks after Jennifer vanished, her body was found floating near the edge of a quiet, isolated lake, surrounded by pine trees and thick fog. The discovery was made early one morning by a local fisherman who had gone out before sunrise. At first, he thought the pale shape drifting near the reeds was debris. When he realized what it was, he called the authorities immediately. Within hours, the area was sealed off, and detectives arrived to begin one of the most difficult stages of the investigation. The body was badly decomposed, but the clothing matched the outfit Jennifer had been wearing on the night she disappeared. Dark jeans, a cream blouse, and a silver necklace that David later confirmed as hers. The lake was 20 miles outside of town, far from anywhere she was known to visit. Dental records provided confirmation. It was Jennifer Gledhill. The autopsy results painted a grim picture. Jennifer had suffered blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with being struck by a heavy object. There were also traces of sedatives in her bloodstream, suggesting she had been drugged before her death. The medical examiner determined she was still alive when she entered the water, but likely unconscious or barely responsive. It was a horrifying detail. She hadn't drowned by accident. Investigators retraced her final known movements on the night she disappeared. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station captured Jennifer A.'s SUV driving through the area around 7:10 p.m. Just minutes later, another vehicle appeared in the same footage, a dark-colored sedan registered to Eric Palmer. The two cars followed the same route toward the rural outskirts of town. When confronted with this evidence, Eric initially denied everything. He said he hadn't spoken to Jennifer in weeks and had no idea where she was. But as detectives presented the footage and cell tower data showing his phone pinging near the lake that same night, his confidence began to crack. Eventually, he confessed to meeting her that evening. He said Jennifer had asked him to meet so they could talk and clear the air. According to his version, she was upset, accusing him of leaking private photos and messages. He claimed the argument grew heated, that she slipped and fell, hitting her head on a rock. Panicked, he said, he believed she was dead and decided to move her body to the lake. Detectives, however, were not convinced. The autopsy findings didn't match his story. The sedatives in her system suggested premeditation. She had been drugged, not simply injured during a fall. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle consistent with Eric's account. And when they examined his car, traces of mud from the same lake were found on the tires and floor mats, along with a small fragment of fabric that matched Jennifer's blouse. Investigators also discovered a search history on Eric S.'s laptop that included disturbing queries about how long sedatives last in the body and how to erase GPS data from a phone. To them, this was not panic, it was planning. Still, there was something that didn't fit. The pattern of manipulation, the forged messages, and the digital trail that had confused investigators for weeks didn't align with Eric A.'s background or behavior. He seemed impulsive, not calculating. Detectives began to wonder if Eric A.'s story, while partly true, was only one layer of a much deeper deception. If Jennifer had been drugged, who had given her the sedative? And why had someone gone to such lengths to frame Eric so convincingly? As the case built against him, Eric sat in custody, his calm composure now replaced by visible fear. He continued to insist that Jennifer's death was an accident, that someone else must have been involved. Police believed they were close to closing the case, but beneath the surface, the evidence was beginning to tell another story, one that pointed to a far more personal betrayal. Just as detectives were preparing to close the case against Eric Palmer, a digital forensics officer made a discovery that would unravel everything they thought they knew. During a final sweep of Jennifer's old laptop, a small encrypted folder caught their attention. It was hidden deep within her personal files, disguised as a routine work document. The folder was labeled Insurance. When investigators unlocked it, they found hours of recorded voice memos, along with scanned notes and saved screenshots. What they uncovered inside changed the entire direction of the investigation. The recordings revealed a terrified woman. Jennifer had documented the months leading up to her disappearance, the affair, the manipulation, the fear that someone was watching her every move. In several memos, she spoke of Eric, describing him as intense and unpredictable, but the tone shifted as the recordings continued. She admitted to ending things with him and feeling a strange sense of relief, only for the harassment to continue from unknown accounts. She had become convinced that Eric was stalking her, but even she began to question that conclusion. She said she felt eyes on her even when she knew he was nowhere near. The final memo, recorded just 3 days before she vanished, shattered the investigators' assumptions. In a shaky voice, Jennifer mentioned another man, someone she had met months before Eric ever came into the picture. She described him as persistent, jealous, and controlling, someone who made her feel trapped long before her affair began. The name she uttered at the end made every detective in the room fall silent. David Gledhill. Jennifer's husband, the man who had stood before cameras pleading for help to find his missing wife, was not the grieving partner he appeared to be. He had discovered her affair months earlier but had never confronted her directly. Instead, he began to plot quietly. He had created fake online profiles, sending threatening messages that appeared to come from Eric. He monitored her devices, accessed her email, and used her own laptop to send herself messages of fear. His goal was simple: to make her paranoid, unstable, and isolated. When she tried to end things with both men and start over, he decided she couldn't be allowed to leave. Forensic analysis confirmed the truth. The sedative found in Jennifer's bloodstream matched a prescription bottle in their home medicine cabinet, one that only David had access to. His fingerprints were on the same laptop used to send the fake threats, and deleted search histories revealed chilling details, instructions on how to mimic another person's writing style and how to disable car tracking systems. The evidence was undeniable. When confronted, David finally broke down. He admitted to following Jennifer that night, confronting her near the rural road where her car was found. He had brought the sedative with him, planning to calm her down. But when she tried to leave, he panicked. He struck her, believing she was dead, then drove her body to the lake. To protect himself, he staged the entire scene to look like Eric had done it, planting clues and ensuring the blame would fall elsewhere. Eric Palmer was eventually released, his reputation in ruins, but his name legally cleared. He left town soon after, unwilling to face the public attention. As for David, he was charged with first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. When the story finally reached the public, the image that circulated was one of Jennifer's professional headshots, smiling, confident, radiant. To the world, she had been the picture of success, a woman who seemed to have everything. But behind that flawless smile was a life unraveling in silence, a web of deceit that ended in tragedy. The case of Jennifer Gledhill became a haunting reminder of how love, jealousy, and secrecy can twist even the most perfect lives into something unrecognizably dark.